Israelis awoke this morning, Thursday, to alerts on our phones and to sirens alarms and had to run to the bomb shelters as a heavy barrage of ballistic missiles was fired from Iran towards the Jewish state. I was in the middle of recording a special report for Stackleback Tonight on TBN at the time that the missiles start exploding in the skies above me. We will share the images of what happened in this report today. The Soroka hospital in Be'er Sheva suffered a direct hit, causing heavy damage as missiles also landed in Tel Aviv, in Ramat Gan, and in Hulon. Thursday morning saw 7 missile impacts in all, following a small barrage just after midnight on Thursday morning, which were all intercepted. However, Iran is getting hit much harder than Israel. What Israel has done in the last 24 hours is a game changer, as one analyst speculated that the Ayatollah regime faces its greatest existential threat since 1979, and it may be that United States President Donald Trump who decides how the story will end. That's because the United States military is making extensive preparations for a strike on Iran, perhaps as soon as this coming weekend. Even before that, Israel has already begun attacking the most vital elements for the Ayatollah regime's survival. Here is a special look behind the scenes at today's recording of a special report I did for Eric Stackleback on TBN as the missiles from Iran started flying above the skies above me. Check it out. Wave 7 triggered internal blast in centrifuge. Okay guys, this is an alarm. I need to go seek some shelter. So I'm hiding now beneath an Israeli old tank here in Harada, which is next to my community. This is a memorial for the 6-day war between Israel and, again, multiple Arab nations. And this brings me back to my military days. This is the safest place to be when there is a missile attack, a mortar attack, or any kind of incoming rocket attack. Well, the tank, not the bomb shelter. Just another day in the office, huh? Well, this is happening 3 times a day per average since this war started. I'm actually happy that it happened as I'm recording for you, so you can be with me and understand what the children and the people of Israel are going through. So keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Guys, welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm your host, Yair Pinto, bringing you all the truth about what is happening in Israel. This is day 7 of the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran. So let's dive into all the information on Operation Rising Lion. In Iran, they reported activation of air defensive systems in western Tehran and in the Karaj. At the same time, they reported that the internet in Iran has hardly been working for 12 hours straight as part of Tehran's attempts to prevent Israel from using it for intelligence purposes. Whether or not that tactic is effective, Israel has many ways of gathering intelligence in Iran, and that was on display over the last 24 hours as the Israeli Air Force was hitting sites of productions of anti-tank missiles that had been transferred to the terrorist organization Hezbollah in Lebanon and other proxy groups in this region. Hundreds of such missiles were fired into northern Israeli communities by Hezbollah last year, resulting in casualties and in destruction, but that won't be happening anymore. On that subject, for years, the Iranian regime has armed the terrorist organizations surrounding Israel, amongst them Hamas, Hezbollah, the Islamic Jihad, and the Houthi terrorist regime. These groups have been severely hit by the IDF during the war, and now Israel is going after the source of the weapons that Iran used to arm them. But of course, we're also going after Iran's own strategic weapon stockpiles and manufacturing capabilities. That includes Iran's fleet of attack helicopters, as the IDF spokesperson declared that the Air Force aircrafts continue to fly over Iranian skies and locate targets for attack. The Air Force recently identified and struck 3 Iranian Cobra attack helicopters that were at a military base in the Karmanashah area. But losing helicopters is not the only problem that the regime in Iran faces this week. Yesterday, a power outage began throughout Iran following the IDF strikes, and according to a local report in the country, this comes on top of a cyber attack which severely impacted the country's banking system and the ATM networks. In addition, the IDF completed another wave of strikes around Tehran against the regime's nuclear weapons projects and missile production sites. This also included strikes around the heavy water nuclear reactor near the city of Arak, and this is according to media reports. Together, we'll take a look at why this facility is of practical importance to the Iranian attempt to break out to a bomb, and we'll also look at another nuclear target that Israel has struck so far. However, the big question that everybody is waiting to get an answer for is whether United States President Donald Trump will order the United States military to join in the attack on Iran's evil and tyrannical regime. Reports emerged on Wednesday evening that Donald Trump approved the plans for a strike in Iran, but has not yet given the final green light to put those plans into motion, after declaring that only the United States can destroy the nuclear facility at Fordo. Watch TBN Israel for more updates. Another big question on everyone's mind is whether Israel is actively trying to change the regime in Tehran, or whether we're just not going to be sorry that it happened. Maybe it's a little bit of both, as Israeli leaders are actively calling on the masses in Iran to raise up against the regime, and frankly, telling them that there'll never be a better opportunity. On Wednesday evening, Mossad and Israeli security hacked into the Iranian TV broadcasters instead of the regular Revolutionary Guards programming. Messages were shown calling the public to protest against the Ayatollahs. In the upper corner appeared the official emblem of Operation Rising Liar, published by Israel's National Information Directorate. Of course, the regime was very annoyed by this, and just after midnight, missiles were launched from Iran towards the Israeli territory, and 2 UAVs were intercepted in northern Israel. As I said before, there was another much larger barrage on Thursday morning, 7 of which resulted in impacts. The IDF also examined the impact site of previous missile attacks, including in Bat Yam and other places in Israel. Yesterday, my crew and I went boots on the ground style to the impact point at Bat Yam, an Israeli city, to see what the recovery teams were doing and to see firsthand what effect these attacks are having on the Israeli home front. We'll have a full report about what we saw for you this weekend, so make sure you subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss this report, and we'll let you know what's happening boots on the ground style. I'll give you a hint though, that the IDF has confirmed that larger and far more destructive warheads are being mounted on the latest barrages of missiles that Iran is sending towards our homes in Israel, including hospitals and other residential neighborhoods of civilians, while strangely not directly targeting our military installations anymore. Meanwhile, Israel's war against the proxy terror group on our borders also continues, including a strike over the last 24 hours which resulted in the elimination of another senior Hezbollah commander. Maybe this evil man thought that we were so distracted by the battle against the IRGC that he could pop his head up and start acting more out in the open, but that ended up being the last mistake that he ever made. Another terrorist leader who made a mistake recently was the Houthi chief of staff, who was hit while he sat around with some of his friends chewing the narcotic leaf that is one of Yemen's main exports. Maybe the Houthis are too busy getting high to launch missiles at Israel these days, or maybe this strike on their chief of staff has had an effect on their abilities, but whatever the reason, were not sorry for the lack of incoming missiles from Yemen this past week. In any case, there is a growing consensus in the intelligence echelon that this evil man was at least critically wounded in the strike, and he might be permanently out of the picture. And meanwhile, the battle in the Gaza Strip continues, and the ball is not in Hamas's court. The IDF is setting the pace of the ongoing conflict with targeted assassinations, encircling Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip and taking ground so that Hamas cannot use it any longer. Even as the Israeli Air Force carried out strikes in Tehran and Natanz, IDF infantry brigades continue to operate deep inside the Gaza Strip. In Khan Yunis, an evacuation notice was issued to residents after tough days of fighting that saw one IDF soldier fall while 10 others were wounded. And what is happening with the flow of humanitarian aid? We will bring you all the details. So we have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 621 of the war with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region who are taking their orders from the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the axis of evil in this region, which is being struck as I'm speaking by the Israeli Air Force. And a moment before we begin, it's important for me to remind you that there is one war that Israel is losing, and that is the war for sharing the truth about what is actually happening on the ground. So we at TBN Israel work day and night to bring you all the truth, and we need your support to continue. So guys, if you want to help us create more videos, you can hit the donate button here on YouTube, or you can go to www.tbn.org/standwithisrael. We are launching a new campaign to increase and share the truth of what is happening on the ground in this war, so that you will know how to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. This war is between good and evil, and we know that Israel is on the side of God and good. So with that in mind, let's start with today's top headlines. The Israeli Air Force keeps pounding away at the most significant factor in the regime's survival in Iran. After striking the uranium enrichment facility in Natanz and the conversion plant in Isfahan, another nuclear site is on the sights, as overnight between Wednesday and Thursday, the IDF continued striking nuclear sites, weapons depots, missile launchers, and other military targets across Iran. At the same time, the IDF spokesperson's unit in Persian, Master Sergeant in Reserve Kamal Pinchasi, issued an urgent evacuation warning to workers and to people in the Arak Honbad area and published a map with an IR-40 heavy water reactor near the Arak encircled. The heavy water reactor near Arak is about 240 kilometers west of Tehran and is now officially called Honbad. Construction began in 2004 but was not completed because of various complications. However, construction continued, and as late as last week, there was a plan for it to be operational sometimes in 2026. The regime claims that this facility is for civilian purposes, but the fact that it is based on heavy water will allow plutonium to be produced there relatively easily, and just like enriched uranium, plutonium can serve as fissile material for a nuclear weapon. This was in fact the main suspicion regarding Tehran's intentions with the reactor. Recall that Israel already struck the Natanz enrichment facilities in the opening blow of Operation Rising Lion, and according to assessment, caused serious damage there. It also struck the conversion plant in Isfahan, where enriched uranium gas is converted into uranium metal that can be mounted on a nuclear warhead, but refrained from striking the nearby nuclear fuel stockpile, which the IAEA now admits it does not know where it is. Israel also struck centrifuge factories in Karaj and a site for producing rotors for advanced centrifuges in Tehran. According to reports that were denied, Israel also struck in the area of the fortified nuclear facility under the mountain at Fordo, but only the United States has the suitable bomb that can likely penetrate it from the air, and that is a subject that we'll be talking about a lot in the coming days. Here at TBN Israel, we will keep reporting every development, and as always, we ask you to keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And don't forget to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you stay tuned to the truth in real time. And if it matters to you that the truth from Israel reaches far, we need your help. So you can donate to our activity and help us create more videos like this one, and stand with the truth by visiting www.tbn.org/standwithisrael. We are launching a new campaign to increase the reach and battle the misinformation that is coming out about Israel. Now, let's continue. The media portal Iran International identified with the opposition in Iran reported on Wednesday evening that broadcasts on the country's TV channels were hacked and images of protests were aired. In addition, messages calling on the Iranian people to take to the streets and protest against the regime were shown on screen. In the upper corner of the emblem identified with Operation Rising Lion, the symbol appeared. The Iranian Broadcasting Corporation announced that disruptions, and in an official statement blamed Israel, saying if you see unrelated images, the reason is interference with the satellite signal by the Zionist enemy. Israel, at least officially, claims that toppling the Tehran regime is not one of the war's objectives, but it's very apparent that if this does happen, no one in Israel will be shedding any tears. In any case, Iran International wrote that sources estimated that the hack has done via satellite interference, so that the messages appeared on the screens of those watching TV by satellite. This is not the first cyber attack that Iran has reported coming from Israel in recent days. All week, residents in Iran said that they were having trouble withdrawing cash from the ATMs belonging to the bank Sefach, which is government-owned and affiliated with the Revolutionary Guards. Responsibility for the cyber attack on Bank Sefach was claimed by the hacker group Predatory Sparrow, which has previously claimed responsibility for many actions against the Iranian security forces and against fuel and steel plants. And according to the group, the bank was used to bypass international sanctions on Iran and to fund Revolutionary Guards activities, including the construction of missile and also nuclear program materials. The statement said that this is the fate of an institution dedicated to preserving the dictator's terror fantasies, and also included a statement thanking the allies who helped carry out this attack. Elsewhere, the head of the Intelligence Directorate, Major General Shlomi Binder, visited the troops this week in a tour of bases where he observed the current activities. Speaking to a group of operatives and in the presence of journalists accompanying him, he praised the soldiers for the intelligence that broke the path to Tehran and enabled a strike at the Iranian General Staff. He also told the soldiers, "You have proven that you know how to break boundaries and reach any target. Remember all the time that we are not fighting in only one theater. We are fighting Iran, but our eyes are open on the hostages in the Gaza Strip and on the various threats to the home front and other arenas to defend Israel." Here at TBN Israel, we will keep spreading the truth, so click the subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you stay tuned to the truth in real time and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Now, let's move quickly to what is happening in international diplomacy around the Israeli-Iran war, especially the all-important question of whether the United States of America will join this campaign. Bloomberg reported on Wednesday that senior American officials said that United States forces are preparing for the possibility of a strike in Iran in the coming days, but they noted that the situation is still developing and could change. One source said that several heads of United States federal agencies have begun preparing for the strike, which could happen as early as this weekend. And meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reported that President Donald Trump told his advisors he approved strike plans on Iran, but that he still wants to give Iran one last chance to agree to abandon its nuclear program. ABC reported, citing an intelligence source, that Trump is warning to the idea of eliminating the Fordo enrichment facilities and that there will not be just one strike, but several strikes. This is according to the source that added that the United States has already begun preparing for this. And meanwhile, United States officials told Reuters that the United States military has already moved some planes and ships from bases in the Middle East that could be hit in a potential Iranian attack. Among other things, one source said that the United States Navy ships were moved from the port of Manama in Bahrain, home of the Fifth Fleet, and aircrafts not in shelters in Qatar were moved from El Udeid Air Base to a different location. At the same time, the United States has brought tankers, aircraft carriers, and other military assets to the region, in addition to the deployment of B-2 strategic bombers to the Indian Ocean. In other words, the Americans have surrounded Iran with massive firepower and given President Donald Trump the option of annihilating what's left of the nuclear program and possibly ending this wicked, evil, and ridiculous Ayatollah regime once and for all. However, just because he has the option doesn't mean that he's definitely going to use it. CNN is reporting that President Donald Trump has not yet made a final decision on how to proceed, and that in talks with the United States allies, it is apparent that he's keeping his options open. For instance, contrary to the Wall Street Journal report that he had approved strike plans, CNN says that he is still reviewing them as he waits for Tehran's decision regarding its nuclear program. The report noted that administration officials are discussing how to join the fighting without getting entangled in a wider war. It is interesting to note that in discussions among senior officials, the 220 assassination of the Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani in Iraq was mentioned as an example of direct United States involvement in the conflict and did not lead to full escalations, as so many so-called experts were sure it would. On the other hand, the New York Times editorial board reminded us that the United States also thought that the 2003 Iraq war would end quickly and lead to the establishment of a functioning democracy in that country. But instead, the United States withdrew in exhaustion after 9 years, and over 4,000 United States soldiers were killed in action and many more wounded, leaving behind a dysfunctional mess that is still being sorted out. So with all that in mind, Trump is reported to have told his advisors during discussions on Wednesday that "I like to make the final decision a second before it's supposed to be made. Especially with war, things change. It can go from one extreme to the other." Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "I'm not drugging Trump. It's his decision." Although in security discussions held on Wednesday evening, it was assessed that the United States would soon join the strikes in Iran. However, the Americans have not yet gathered all the force that they need for an attack against Iran's nuclear facilities. This will require large logistical preparations, including, among other things, deploying bombers, escort fighters, and tankers to this region. This process is ongoing but could take several more days to complete. In addition, the United States Navy is sending a third aircraft carrier battle group to the region, but it will take a few more days to get there. And meanwhile, Israel is passing all the necessary information to the Americans so that they won't waste precious time and will be synchronized with the IDF, where they estimate that the United States will join the fighting. If that indeed happens, the American strike will be led by the United States CENTCOM commander, General Kurilla, who has already met with President Trump and presented him with the various options. While Trump sits on the fence and simultaneously calls on Iran to surrender unconditionally, Israel assesses that the Ayatollah regime will not back down because they have no other options, and if they feel that they are about to be overthrown, they will try to preserve their power with all their might. Essentially, it all depends on President Trump, as United States' entry into this campaign will greatly accelerate Iran's inevitable defeat, but the IDF is prepared to continue even without the Americans. And meanwhile, Jerusalem has announced that alongside strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities and ballistic missile stockpiles, symbols of the Ayatollah government are also being targeted. This is necessary because in Middle Eastern cultures, symbols matter a great deal, and pride is the motivation for many decisions. Breaking your opponent's pride is a major strategic objective of any military campaign in this part of the world. Accordingly, in recent days, Israel began striking police and internal security stations in Iran and destroyed the National Police headquarters in Tehran. This body suppressed protesters against the regime and is hated by large parts of the Iranian public, and hitting it may encourage opposition elements to take to the streets. And regarding the destruction of Iran's nuclear sites and missile stockpiles, the Air Force continues executing the IDF's set plan without deviation. An Israeli source said, "No target will remain untouched. Each one will be hit." And at the same time, although the Iranians have sent messages to Israel that they will stop launching missiles if the IDF ceases striking, no negotiations are taking place between the two states. And a source in Jerusalem described the Iranian proposal as ridiculous, adding, "We will not stop," while the United States has also told Iran it will not enter new negotiations for a ceasefire, but demands Iran's unconditional surrender, as President Trump has repeatedly said. And meanwhile, despite the extensive destruction from ballistic missile hits across the country, senior officials in Jerusalem say that Israel has been very surprised by Iranian weaknesses. Even Hezbollah fought harder before collapsing. And on that note, Israel has also given a stern warning to what's left of Hezbollah to stay out of this fight, saying if they dare to fire, this time they will be destroyed for good. Iran no longer has the whip of Hezbollah's threat. The IRGC does shoot ballistic missiles at Israel and sometimes hit the home front, but the IDF has encountered no resistance and is flying unhindered in the skies over Iran. In this context, it is important to tell you that Iranian regime officials has boasted for shooting down several Israeli F-35 jets in the past 24 hours. These claims are untrue, but I'm not surprised that they try to make them since they know so many media outlets around the world are eager to repeat everything that they say without even bothering to check if it's true or not. The IDF did confirm that it had lost a reconnaissance drone shot down over Iran, but no manned jets have been lost. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep reporting on every development on the subject and update the minute something is happening. So guys, keep spreading the truth, share and follow us, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you stay tuned to what's happening in Israel in real time. And if it matters to you that the truth from Israel reaches far, we need your help. You can donate to our activity by going to www.tbn.org/standwithisrael. Or also, you can hit the donate button on YouTube. Let's continue. Yesterday, my team and I traveled to Bat Yam to examine what the Iranian missiles that struck the residential buildings did there. I've witnessed a few scenes in my life, but I was stunned by the amount of damage, and it helped me feel better about the inconvenience and the hassle of running to bomb shelters. I've been around missiles and suicide drones that exploded next to me that Hezbollah launched, or rockets that were launched by Hamas towards me and my friends, my families, but this was something else. The amount of damage that was caused by this missile basically destroyed an entire area of a residential neighborhood, striking a tall rising building. So the importance to follow the IDF Home Front Command instructions to enter the protected spaces as soon as possible when you hear an alert are real. You'll see our full report from the Bat Yam impact site on our YouTube channel this coming Saturday. So stay tuned for that. And speaking of missiles, the IDF says that the missile launched on Wednesday evening may have carried more explosive materials than the Shihab-3 rockets that Iran has been firing at Israel in recent days. A military source said that our systems know how to intercept both types, and during the week, several of the double-charge missiles were intercepted. For their part, the Iranians claim that they fired a Shahar missile at Israel, saying it carries a 1.5-ton warhead, but the IDF estimates the warhead only weighs about a bit more than a ton. That's still a lot of explosive power, but as usual, the Iranians are exaggerating their strength. The old Shihab missile can carry a warhead of about 700 kilometers, but the Iranians have made developments and adjustments to achieve greater range and higher flight speed. The IDF says it identified and examined several interceptions over the past week and found that some of the missiles carried a warhead much larger than the Shihab 3's 500 to 700 kilograms. The IDF is checking whether the missile that hit the Bat Yam building had an enlarged warhead, but once again stresses that there is no difference in detection or interception capabilities against the larger warheads. However, on Wednesday evening, a missile was intercepted by the Arrow 3 system, but because of its large size, the Iron Dome had to perform secondary interceptions of the fragments. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep spreading the truth, so follow us, share, and help us give you the information you need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Now, staying on the subject of incoming missiles, but switching our focus slightly to the southern front, Israel has been pleasantly surprised since Operation Rising Lion began by the small number of attacks from the Houthis in Yemen, but cannot understand what explains this. It may relate to growing assessments in Jerusalem that the Yemeni terror group's Chief of Staff Muhammad Abd el-Karim el-Gamari was critically wounded in last Saturday's Israeli strike, and a senior Israeli revealed in this context the Houthi Chief of Staff came to a meeting to chew gut, and that's where we hit him. The Israeli strike against el-Gamari occurred alongside the attacks in Iran and the retaliatory missile fire on Israel, so reporting about it was muted. And furthermore, the outcome of the assassination attempt is still unknown, nor who was with Gamari at the time, but it was assessed that several top figures might have been at the meeting. Jerusalem's assessment is that el-Gamari was at least seriously wounded and might not have survived, while a Yemeni security source told the media after the attempt that el-Gamari also headed the terror group's missile program. Other sources have confirmed that he had received training in Iran and was responsible for coordination between the Islamic Republic and the Houthis. The sources added that the Houthi Chief of Staff was one of the most dangerous in the Yemeni terror group, and if he is indeed out of the picture, it is a painful blow to both Iran and to the Houthis. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep reporting on every front where Israel is fighting, and as always, we ask you to keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And don't forget to click that subscribe button so that you stay tuned to the truth in real time. And guys, if you want to help us create more content like this one and share the truth, we just launched a campaign to stand with Israel. So visit tbn.org/standwithisrael. Make a donation and have the truth come out of Zion to the rest of the world. Now, we are getting back to the news, even though the world's eyes are fixed on the fierce war between Iran and Israel, though battles continue inside the Gaza Strip while the Israeli Air Force jets strike deep inside Tehran, the capital of Iran, and eliminate senior figures in the Ayatollah regime. The fighters in Khan Yunis are also destroying terror targets and doing everything to bring back 53 hostages who have stayed in captivity for 621 days so far. So what's happening in the Gaza Strip this week? To start with, 4 divisions, regular and reserves, are deployed inside Gaza on defense and offensive missions. The forces eliminate terrorists and destroy underground terror infrastructure while continuing to strengthen the border security. Division 162 applies operational pressure with offensive action in Jabalia. In the past 24 hours, the forces closed circles on terrorists, destroyed terror infrastructure, and raided operational apartments used by Hamas figures. Division 36 operates in Khan Yunis and is aimed at destroying terror infrastructure and subduing the local Hamas brigade. The forces encounter terrorists and eliminate them from the air and in direct contact. Division 252 fights continuously in northern Gaza, focusing on destroying terror infrastructure above and below the ground. Division 143 the Gaza division simultaneously defends western Negev communities and conducts extensive offenses in Rafah. The IDF Arabic language spokesperson on Tuesday issued an evacuation warning to the El Jala, Hamed, and El Karara neighborhoods in northern Khan Yunis as Division 36 activity expands. The troops are in daily friction with the local population, and they try to lay hands on Hamas terrorists that are operating covertly. And finally, for the first time under the United States initiative, all 4 distribution hubs are operating simultaneously under international aid organizations. The centers, closely coordinated with the United States, opened together on Monday to enable humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. They stretch from the south to the center near the Netzarim corridor, in Tel El Sultan neighborhood, around the Morag route, and in the Saudi neighborhood west of the Philadelphia corridor. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep reporting every development, and once again, I invite you to keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And above all, don't forget to click that subscribe button and help us support the truth and reach more people with what's happening in Israel. And if you want to do more and help us financially, we just launched a campaign to stand with Israel. So you can visit tbn.org/standwithisrael. This is our campaign. Make a donation, help us create more content from Israel. You can also hit the donate button here on YouTube. Now, it is my sad duty to conclude this report by paying my last respects to some Israeli heroes who sacrificed their lives for their country this week. The IDF spokesperson's unit announced on Wednesday the name of Staff Sergeant Stav Khalfon, 20 years of age, from Petah Tikva, who fell in battle in Khan Yunis. Khalfon, a combat engineer in Battalion 603, Sar Golani Brigade, was wounded by sniper fire and initially classified in critical condition, but afterward his death was confirmed. This brings the total number of IDF soldiers that lost their lives in this war to 871. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep sharing the information from Israel, and we call on you to pray for the families of those who lost their loved ones. Join us in prayer for the people of Israel, pray for the healing of the wounded, and for the Israeli civilians who since October 7 live daily under this threat of rockets attack and other threats from terrorist groups and terror entities. Guys, keep praying for our hostages that are held in the Gaza Strip by Hamas. Keep praying for the IDF soldiers. Keep praying for the people of Israel, and most importantly, pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.